There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always at my back, my guardian soldier. Team pulled together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak, straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, 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 ride. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper.
Are we ready? We're ready. Hey there, Moto fans. You are listening to show number 16 of the Mental for Moto podcast. I'm your host, Pete Wolf. Before we kick things off, I'd like to give a massive shout out to our promotional partners for this podcast: Death Grip Products, Graphics by Aqua, Works Racing, Wolf Building Compliance, SPMX Suspension and Engine Performance, and our latest partner, Shred by Care. Keep an ear out later in the podcast for more info on the great range of products and services that these guys can help you out with. Or if you can't wait that long, you'll find all the relevant links below in the bio of this episode. Also, our latest batch of merch has now dropped. Our first lot of hoodies with the OG graffiti style graphics sold out in 3 days. So a massive thanks to everyone that got in so quick. This time around, we've expanded our range with hoodies and tees in a number of different designs that we previewed on Instagram. So visit the website, www.mentalformoto.com, and order yours today. All right, we have an absolutely awesome show lined up for you today. With the Aussie Supercross set to kick off in Radelaide in less than 2 weeks. Joining me in studio today as our industry guest is the man pulling all the strings behind the scenes, General Manager at AME, Mick Sinclair. Mick's been doing a bunch of media over the last few weeks, giving updates on the range of great initiatives that AME have cooked up for the 2023 championship, which is looking to be just the first step in a bright new era of Aussie Supercross. We'll, of course, be touching on not only what those initiatives are, but I'd also love to hear from Mick a little bit more about how and why they came about. Now, Mick and I used to race together and even knock about at the track a bit more than 30 years ago. Since then, Mick's gone on to work with industry icons such as Crusty Demons of Dirt, Nitro Circus, Fox, Stevens Harley Heaven, the World Supercross Championship, and of course is now heading up the Aussie Supercross Championship for AME. Mick Sinclair, welcome to the Asylum, mate. It's amazing to have you here in the studio.
Thanks for having me, mate. I know we've been trying to do this for a little while, but it's stoked to get down here in sunny Wonthaggi to get this done with you.
Yeah, I guess this kind of constitutes a reunion of sorts. As 30-something years ago, we used to race together at the old Hallam Junior Motocross track.
Yeah.
Since those days, way back in the early 90s, you've gone on to have a storied career in the industry.
Thanks. What year was that in the 90s?
91 and 92 I raced.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right. So I started in 90.
Yep.
89, 90, I think, on a Pee-wee, but jumped off that pretty quickly. So they were, when you sent me those photos a couple of years ago, we were on 60s?
Yeah, KX60s, yep.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I never went to 80s. My parents, I don't know if you remember Darren Nickel.
Yeah, of course. I still speak to him.
Yeah, he broke his pelvis and my mum cracked it. And,
right.
They had big blues and sold my bike. And
no, I still see Justin and Darren.
Yep,
getting around.
Unreal. Yeah. He used to be a gun in the junior ranks.
He's jumped back on recently. He can still ride it right too.
I raced BMX in the years after that, and they came and raced BMX with me a few times as well.
Knox?
I raced at Knox, but that was at Lilydale actually.
Oh yeah, cool. There you go.
So one of my goals with these industry podcasts is to give listeners not only a bit of a look behind the curtain, but to get to know the people like yourself that make it all happen. We'll, of course, talk about your current role in the industry and all the things that you currently have cooking. But to break the ice, let's chat a bit about the journey it took to get there and starting from where it all began.
Well, I guess it all began where we just spoke about. it all started with me racing and with my brother, and my dad was a huge influence on that. My dad raced when he was younger, and I got a peewee for my first birthday, and that sat around for a little while. I actually don't know whatever happened to it, but it went. And then I remember I was 4, and dad come home with a QR50. That used to be Luke Urex.
Yep.
And that was a bike for Cam and I to share. At that time, we were living in North Dandenong, and we would, after school, Dad would take us down to police paddocks, just in the car park or around, a little bit of scrub there in the police paddocks in Dandenong. And Cam and I would cruise around on that. And then from there, would have been 4, we got into racing at Hallam, as you mentioned, and that's where it all stemmed from. From then right through to the age of, maybe 18, that's what we did. Every weekend we were away somewhere with Mum and Dad and Cam, and whether it was Gippy centres. They didn't really have Gippy centres back then. It was more the 2-days.
Yeah.
Gippy centres came in later. I mean, they were always around, but they were never like what they are now. But yeah, so we just every weekend we'd travel Victoria, Australia with in the 4-wheel drive and in the old patrol and a trailer with our bikes, and that's what we did for a family. And I guess from there it was just embedded in us, and I never really went chasing a career in it at all. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. Did your dad ride as well?
Nah.
No, he was just a moto dad?
I've actually never seen Dad ride.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
No, never. I know he did as a kid. I've seen photos. But I don't know when he stopped, and I've actually never seen him ride. I actually should bring that up.
Was he into road bikes?
Not really. I mean, he had a road bike for a while, but hardly ever seen him ride that too. He rides Harleys now, and he rides often now, and we've rode Harleys together quite a bit, but I've never seen him ride a dirt bike. That's a really interesting question, and something why I've never asked him.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
Yeah.
Well, obviously something drew him to it, but like you've sort of touched on, it's a great pastime for a family. Like, it's super bonding, and you see a lot of that at the motocross track these days and at the Gippies. Like, the whole family's there, kids.
Yeah, I always wonder if it's still like that, if it's like it is now for what it was for us back then, because I can tell you, I reckon from school, primary school and high school, I'd have one friend that I talk to.
Yep.
Outside of that, I wouldn't have a clue what any of the people I went to school with do. I haven't stayed in touch with them, but from the age of 4 right until now, and I'm still meeting friends in this industry, but I've got, friends, and, my best friends I've been around for the last, I'm 41 now, so the last 35 years. Shane Boyd and we met when we were 10, and we're best friends. We're neighbours. We live right next door to each other. We just spoke about Darren Nickel. I don't see him often, but if I were to see him, it'd be like we saw each other every day. The Carafas, the Gillespies. Like, there's just so many people that from that young age who we travelled the countryside with, Victoria, Australia again, that we're still friends with to this day. And Cam and I often talk about and wonder if it's still like that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it is.
I think it is. Like, talking to a lot of the younger crew, I hear a lot of the same things, that all their friends are motocross based. Even Dean Mosig said the same thing. I mean, he's more of our generation, but he said all of his friends are from the motocross scene. Same sort of thing. He doesn't have any friends from a past life.
Yeah.
I've only got I'd say 2 or 3 people that I associate with regularly from outside the motocross scene.
Yeah.
It's something that's quite strange. It kind of creates a bit of a band of brothers, I think.
Absolutely. Everyone we roll with, like our whole families, when we go away at Christmas or Easter or whatever, we're all connected via moto, and it's been like that, for a long time. Yeah. We were kids racing bikes. We were teens running amok. We were young adults running a big amok, and now we're family guys with kids still running amok.
Yeah. Do your kids ride motocross at all?
A little bit. I gave him the opportunity to. Hudson, he's 12 now, just never really got into it. I mean, he loves it. He watches it. He knows everything about every rider. He rode last weekend at Hastings, but that's really as much riding as he does. He just rides for fun every now and then. I mean, the sport he's picked is BMX and downhill.
Yep.
He plays footy as well, but right now it's all about downhill. And the downhill scene, which is kind of irrelevant to this show, but man, that is thriving.
Yeah.
It is amazing, and I'm really into it. My daughter races BMX, so we're kind of following that path that I took as a childhood, but we're doing it through BMX, and I find BMX is such an amazing sport. My daughter and I had recently just went to Glasgow for the World Championships. We got back a month ago, and that was an amazing experience, and it's really no different to moto. I mean, people say it's a lot cheaper. Yeah, not really. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's an Olympic sport too, and my daughter, she's 9, she wants to go to the Olympics, and she's talking that. I'm like, okay, well, she's at 9 and talking about that, whether she gets there or not. But man, I'll give her every chance and every shot at, so that's the path my kids have taken, but they both still love to ride.
Yeah.
They really love getting down to Hastings. They love going to Park 4 MX and just having a cruise every now and then. Huds actually rides really well, and I would have loved to have seen him want it. I didn't want to force it down his throat though, and then I always thought he'd take that path from BMX, because we got him into BMX when he was 3 down at Frankston. And I always thought it'd be a stepping stone, but he just kind of stuck with it. And he's had a moto, and yeah, he's always had one, but just never went down that path of wanting to race or be competitive on it. Gets around pretty good, but he just wants to have fun.
Oh, you never know what the future holds.
Yeah, but it doesn't bother me. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people say that. Oh, is he into moto? And no, he doesn't. He's into BMX and downhill. Oh, but will he? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
See,
I think if he was going to, he would have done it by now.
I can definitely appreciate that, because I went the other way. I went from moto to BMX to downhill and dual slalom, and I can definitely see the sort of similarities between the scenes and the communities and the people that get involved. So I can definitely appreciate the draw of push bikes and racing push bikes and those communities as well. I don't think it's that different. It's, if having a motor is what floats your boat, and that's one thing, and if pedaling is what floats your boat, that's another.
I haven't been around the junior motocross scene for a while, but from what I can see, it looks a little different, or a lot different to what it used to be from when we were doing it, but that was a long time ago, and everything changes, right? But for me, BMX still feels like what it used to be for moto with my family growing up in it, and that's why I love it so much.
One thing I've noticed about the junior motocross scene at the moment compared to when we used to do it back as kids, I think it's a lot mellower now.
Really? I had the impression it was the other way around.
Yeah, no, talking to even the dads, there is that big focus on the kids having fun, even when they're successful and enjoying it. I felt like, especially the kids that were really good when we were racing, there was a lot of pressure on them back in those days.
I mean, I wasn't that good, but my brother was okay.
Yep.
And saw every bit of that pressure.
Yeah. And where did that come from? Was that from your parents? Or?
100% from Dad. Dad, is my best mate, and we talk most days, and he's a legendary grandfather no matter where my kids are. He didn't come to Glasgow, but he's at most of the races and footy games and whatever. But growing up, he was fucking hard on both of us. And I mean, I was lucky I wasn't as good as Cam or as good at all. But I remember there was a couple of times where, we copped it.
Yeah.
But I think that was kids back then were probably copping it playing footy or playing cricket or BMX. I think they were just harder blokes back then.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just my old man that would spit it. It'd be everywhere. It was kind of common.
Oh, 100%. My dad was the same. He's always been into motorbikes and the dirt bike scene. My dad was more into road bikes. The dirt bike scene was my interest.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wanted me to do well, and
well, they spent so much money and invested so much time, right? And if you weren't putting 100% in, then I could see why they would crack the shits.
Yeah, I think for me, the enthusiasm was there. I was always wanting to ride every opportunity I got, which I think gave him the shits a bit. Mm-hmm. The results just weren't there. I was like a 5th to 7th place guy when we had full gates at some of the opens, and that was the best I sort of ever got to.
We must have battled.
Yeah,
I was probably around that mark too.
Yeah, you were a little bit faster than me. I was always probably 1 or 2 places back from you. I remember that. So my last race ever, was my only podium.
Where at?
That was at Hallam.
Hallam
I only
too?
ever raced at
Oh,
Hallam.
you only did Hallam?
I only ever did Hallam.
I
yeah.
really miss that place.
Sorry, I did Westgate as well.
Oh, yeah, of course. How
Yeah.
good was Westgate?
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty rough back there, though.
Oh, definitely rough. And you get roosted by seashells and fucking whatever else they had in the ground over there. But, yeah, there's two really good tracks that aren't with us anymore.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
The scene seems to be growing, and that's probably something we'll touch on a bit later in the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scene's going. I think that we're entering another golden era of motocross and hopefully supercross as well. So, but we'll go down there. You've already mentioned it, but you know, your brother Cam Sinclair is a bit of a phenom in the motocross and freestyle motocross scenes in Australia. What was it like growing up with Cam and racing with Cam and your relationship?
It was fine. I mean, Cam and I are really close. We're only 16 months apart. We never got to race each other because there was age groups back in then, and I was always like a bike size above him. Oh, he was on Pee-wees, I was on 60s. When he got to 60s, I was on 80s, and then, you know, by the time he went to an 80, I was probably on 100 back. You know, we raced hundreds back then, and then by the time he got onto a big wheel or 100, I was on 125s, and then the first time we raced each other was in seniors when he hit 16. But it was good. There was never, from a racing point of view, it was never too competitive. I mean, we used to try and beat the shit out of each other at home, and we'd, you know, no matter what we did, it was a competition. And growing up in Endeavour Hills, we had a big, huge block across the road from us, and we would just spend all our time building jumps. And he used to shit me because he was the guy with the skill. I say I got the brains, he got the skill. And he would always jump at first.
Yep.
Every time, and it gave me the shits. And I would try, and I'd crash, and then I'd crack the shits, and then we'd have a blue over it, and that happened with everything. But I think that's just a standard thing you do as brothers. Later in life, obviously, when he started, you know, winning races as a local senior and then going to Supercross races as a privateer, I was a massive supporter for a little while, a couple of years. You know, we had a couple of family dramas with mum and dad or whatever, and Cam and I spent a couple of years doing it by ourselves, and he was still trying to race, and I was working, and so I was funding his racing for a couple of years, and that's how his freestyle career kind of kicked off. And you know, it'd probably be worth getting him down here one day to tell a story about how that kicked off, because I don't want to spend that time on this. But you know, we were going to Supercross Masters. It was a battle, you know, it was week in, week out, trying to get some prize money to get us to the next race. And then John O'Porter said, you should come and do the expressing session with me. Yeah, and he was getting paid more money to do the expressing session than what it would be to get on the podium in the 250 class. Oh, sorry, the 125 class. So I was like, fuck, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And then by that stage, you know, Crusty Tour is out here. I don't know where they met Deegan, but they met Deegan and they rode 50s on one of the Crusty shows. And then from there, next year, they were on the whole tour.
Yep.
So that's how Cam's things come about. But growing up with him, it was great, super competitive. But to this day, we're still really good friends. We talk most days as well. Our wives get along great. We live 900 meters apart. Kids go to school together. They all do the same things. We're riding together on the weekend at Hastings. It was his son's 7th birthday at a birthday party at Hastings, and they all rode together. So we spend a lot of time with them, and yeah, we're all pretty close still.
That's so cool. So one last question before we move on. How come you don't ride anymore?
That's a good question. Time.
Yep.
Outside of work, everything we do is for our kids, and they do a lot between BMX race season and downhill, as well as Hud's playing footy. We just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I ride a bit of mountain biking.
Yep.
I've got an e-bike and blast up and down the hills with Huds. I can't keep up with him anymore. But yeah, I don't know. We'll touch on it later, but I lost the desire to ride. Did it from 4 years old, raced a lot, went into a career that was all around it. And by the time I left Fox, it would have been 34, I just had no interest, like zero desire to go and ride. And Huds wasn't, you know, he was just happy to cruise around. He wasn't racing or whatever. So I was like, I went into other things.
Yep.
And yeah, we had our daughter, and with everything she's been doing with BMX, we just don't have time. And like, I'm really hard on myself that if I know if I can go and ride, I want to do it properly. And the effort for me to throw a bike on the ute, go to a track, put 3 laps in, do 4 3-lap motos and then have to come back and wash it and be really hard on myself because I rode like shit because I'm not fit. And then you got to wash your bike, maintain it. I'm just like, fuck, this ain't worth it.
Yeah.
I will say, and again, we'll touch on it later, like I did lose my passion for racing and watching it, and there was quite a few years where I had no idea what was going on after I left Fox and went into Harley world. I've definitely got that passion back now, though. Like I'm right in it. I love it again. But yeah, even to this day, as much as I love it, I love Supercross. I love working in it. I'm a massive fan. I've still got no desire to go and have a ride though, which I don't know. It's probably a shit answer to your question.
Not really.
And probably some they don't want to hear and people may think that I'm I'm not the biggest fan or I'm not but I'm just not that interested in having a ride.
But there's people in the industry that don't ride and have never ridden. So
yeah,
no, I
give me an adventure bike at the moment. I'm into that.
Yep.
I did a Harley ride towards the end of last year. We flew to Cairns and went up towards Cape York, but we went west towards Darwin and then up north up to Cooktown and then back down the coast into Cairns. And that was like the best 4 days on a motorcycle of my life.
Yeah.
And that, maybe I am an old man, but I always thought adventure tourism for old blokes. But after that, I got it.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, that's where it's at. So give me an adventure ride over a motocross track any day.
Did you ever ride bush growing up, or was it
Never.
all moto?
All moto. Never. The only time I did an off-road race was at Pony Express here at Wonthaggi. Cam and I did it.
Yep.
And we smoked them. And it was just a clubby, and we went down there to have a bit of fun. And it was like a clubby. Like, we probably shouldn't have rode it, but it was a lot of fun. But that was the first and last time I did any kind of off-road enduro racing.
Was that when it was still through all the bush?
You had to cross the road.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one we did.
So yeah, they've stopped doing that, but that's where I ride my mountain bike.
Oh, really?
Through all the cross country trails.
You'd ride there from here, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's literally 50 meters up the end of the road here.
Oh, cool.
And that's where the trails start, and you still get rollers and stuff. Like, you can still see a little bit of a resemblance because it's all sand.
Yeah. I don't know why we didn't do it. I mean, full respect to those guys, and especially through my time at Fox, and I got to know a little bit more about it and met a bunch of the guys and worked with them, and I went to a lot of the events. Yeah, I do enjoy it and have so much respect for those guys, and in fact, I think they're probably in some cases more skillful or more badass than motocross guys, but just never got into it. We were never given that opportunity.
Yeah. So how did the adventure sport ride come about?
I was working for Harley, and it was a dealer ride. And a whole bunch of us just got, I don't know, it's probably 10 dealers from around the country.
Yep.
Went up to, got invited to go up and ride the new Harley adventure bike. And we spent 4 days out there, and it was amazing.
If I can ever master riding in sand, I'd love to do the Darryl Beattie Simpson Desert ride one day.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
That looks incredible.
Yeah. I find that, we're sitting around at a pub just even Sunday night, and we're talking about, getting Tigers or, Triumph Tigers and heading down this way, then up towards Dargo and then around through Hotham and Bright. Like, they seem to be more of the conversations I'm having with guys now. And that my brother was there and Brawson and a few others and, moto guys for life. But they're the conversations we kind of having at the moment.
No, unreal. Yeah, bush riding is not something that's sort of ever interested me, but those big adventure rides, I think I could definitely enjoy that.
If you get the opportunity, or if anyone gets the opportunity, have a crack. Because I wasn't that keen or stoked on it either until I did it, and now I'm hooked.
So how did you make the transition from being a rider to having a career in the industry?
Again, I didn't really chase it. I left school pretty early. Dad had a really successful plumbing business, and I was always just going to be a plumber, no matter what. If racing didn't work out, and obviously it wasn't going to for me. So I went and did my plumbing apprenticeship with my dad. And at that time, Urive was running Full Throttle Sports. So he had his Honda team, but he was also, Full Throttle Sports was an event management business. He was running Supercross races. He was running his Thumper Cross races all around Victoria, and Cam was doing freestyle at those. I went there, a long story short, to help Cam out with some freestyle stuff. And then I ended up giving Urive a chop out for a couple of events. And then the year after, he was looking for someone to work full-time for him. So I stopped plumbing, and that's where it all started.
So what year was this?
2003, I'd say.
Yep.
So, yeah, it would have been 21, 22. I really enjoyed working on those events, you know.
Was that when Boyley was riding for
Exactly,
Reef?
yep. Yeah, 100% it was.
I think it was Boyley, Cam Taylor,
He
and
started riding
Cade
that
Mosey.
450X.
Yep.
Yeah, so from there and doing those events, I met Scott Runciman, and he was the brand manager of Fox at Monza. Fox and Monza were sponsors of all Uri's events and race teams back then, and we just got to know each other well. We clicked, and then one day out of the blue, I got a phone call from him asking if I was interested to go work with Fox at Monza. And of course I was. I grew up loving that brand. You know, it's like Rip Curl to surfers or whatever. It's just, you know, the brand we grew up to love. And yeah, so I caught up with John Kyoto, the owner of Monza, and Scotty, and then I started there as an assistant product manager working for Scotty at 23. And I had no marketing experience back then, but I always had a marketing head on me. I would write resumes for Cam and I and do our sponsorship deals when we were 14, 15, and would get plenty of product out of people just from, I don't know how. I never studied it. I left school early. I wasn't taught it.
I just understand it.
I just did it. So the role I got at Monza was an assistant product manager, and they didn't have any marketing roles or anyone doing any marketing. It was like a part of your role as a brand manager. So I saw an opportunity there a couple of years in, and I pivoted my role from being, you know, Scotty's assistant to being a marketing manager, which I said we created that role. And from there was as the social media boom was coming in. So I took it upon myself to really learn a lot about social media, and we were the first to really embrace it here in Australia. And I remember we were doing things here for Fox before Fox in the US were doing it from a social media point of view. And that's kind of how I got my reputation as a marketer in the industry. So I spent 10 years, just under 10 years at Monza and with Fox, and had some amazing times, and I've got some of the best memories.
So what did your day-to-day role there sort of look like?
It depends what period. From a marketing side, it was, as a marketer, as a brand or for a brand, you're working, you're doing all the athlete management, so signing riders, creating content with those riders, going to the events with them, make sure, planning out what they're wearing, all the way through to back then it was magazine ads and video content for social media. So we were doing that, but we also had Shift at the time. We had Oakley as well. We helped launch pod knee braces here in Australia at that time too, just as I started. I mean, it's pretty hard to say what we're doing day to day, but those are the type of things we were doing.
Sounds like a bit of a dream job.
It was. I mean, it really was. I loved it. Going to the races as a kid in your late 20s and getting paid to go. And I was getting paid to go to the races and getting paid more than some of the riders that were actually racing, because I'd go there and be representing our brand and building content, which was really rare at that time. And we were just leaps and bounds above any other brand here in Australia back then. So
it's still easily one of the most iconic brands in motocross. It's like the Nike of motocross.
For sure, and I still love Fox. I still bleed it.
And I'm sure the riders that you come across in the paddock that aren't Fox athletes, they all want a piece of it if they could get it.
Oh, they say they don't, but yeah, deep down, I mean, I guess every kid grew up wanting to look like, Ricky or James when they were kids, or even McGrath and whoever else wore it. Like it was really cool. I had experiences. Growing up, Jeff Immig was my childhood hero. I've got really fond memories of going to my grandparents' house every Wednesday night. We'd go there for dinner, and Pop would have the race from the weekend, the AMA race. I don't know how he got it, but he'd have it on a tape and we'd plug it in there. It probably wasn't even from that weekend. He probably just had them banked up.
Yeah.
But we would sit down there and as a family, we just cheered on Jeff Immig. And through Fox and Monza, getting to know him and work with him, and now we're really good friends. Yeah. And to this day, for me, that's still a highlight. Like, what's one of your career highlights? I mean, I've got a lot. You could talk about Marmont's 4 championships that I worked with him on, meeting guys like Ricky and even Pete and Jeff Fox, and getting gifts from those guys from Christmas. I got a helmet signed by Ricky. That was Ricky's last Supercross helmet. He was a special colorway, but when Fox made a helmet for it like that, they had to make 12. So we got one of them for Christmas one year. Like, there's lots of things, but when people to say, you know, if you had a highlight, for me, it's having that experience with Jeff and turning that into a friendship. And we don't talk a lot, but through my role now and going around to World Supercross races and working on those, and he's our him and Ralph are the commentators, so I see him often.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. And even I still kick myself. We were in Birmingham for round 1 of World Supercross back in July, and you know you're sitting in the catering room after practice or before the race or whatever, and you're just sitting there and froze out. I'm just like, holy shit, how am I here still? Yeah, it's still a spin out for me, and I see that, and I think of my pop and my dad, and those days and nights after dinner watching motocross races in my nan and pop's lounge room cheering on Jeff, and then I see that, and my pop's no longer with us, but we were super close, and to me that's still super special.
Yeah, that's so cool. A lot of people that meet their especially their childhood heroes, when they actually meet them, it sort of falls short of the mark, and I think an outcome where they wish they'd never met their hero, because it's the reality always falls short of the dream, I guess. But that's so cool to hear that, you guys are mates, and he's obviously a good guy, or you wouldn't be mates with him.
He's an absolute legend. I remember a really cool story is that when I first met Jeff, we brought him out here for a shift. We did a shift tour called Ride On, and it was a free ride tour. So we had Jeff, Bilko, Boydie at the time, and we went out to Cruisix and did a day out there. And Cam he was a Fox guy, but he came out anyway, and my dad came out because he wanted to meet Jeff. We all went out for dinner, and I remember we all got a bit pissed, and we were having a good time. And I remember Jeff said, so you're these guys, Dad? And he goes, oh, you must be so proud of him. And my dad's looking at me going, holy shit, that's how cool is that? And I'm looking at him going, fuck, I don't know either. But yeah, those are the type of things that really, you know, are embedded in my mind about my time at Fox and Monza. And there are a million, maybe not a million, but there's hundreds of stories like that about meeting people. And I mean, you still had your shit days at work.
Oh,
like, it wasn't all beer and Skittles, but man, the good days working for Monza and Fox definitely outweighed the bad days.
No, that's cool to hear. So how did you go from working at Fox to going back towards, I guess they're a retail giant, but going to Peter Stevens?
I had spent, close to 10 years at Fox, and a part of my role was going to every single race. Motocross, Supercross, a lot of the enduro races, and also at that time, Fox was branching into surf and wakeboarding and BMX. So I was at a lot of surf events, a bunch of wake events, and we started doing a really hard push into street, like freestyle BMX. So, I mean, it sounds great, but I was away most weekends, and Hudson had been born, and Christy was totally fine with it. I didn't miss that much, I don't think, but it was when Harla was born, that's when it made a difference for this. So
what year was that?
She was born 2014, because I left 2015, and it was just really hard to be away so much and leaving Christy at home with a toddler and a newborn, and I think she might have been 1 or something by the time I left. It was just the right time. I didn't go chasing a new job. I was not going to go anywhere, but Paul Kyoto, so John's nephew, who was in charge of the retail side, asked me to come across, and it made sense. Didn't have to travel all the way over to Altona from Botanic Ridge, and I just spent a lot of time in the car, like hours on that freeway driving to work, because back those days, you had to go to the office. It's not like what it is now.
There's no work from home.
Not back then. So it was just a good opportunity. I did it. I didn't think I would do it for as long as what I did, but time just flew there. So I went to PS as the marketing manager for Harley Heaven, so the Harley side of PS business. It wasn't until probably the last 2 years where I made a switch and looked after PS and Harley. But it was good. I mean, it was really good for my career in moto to be on both sides of the fence. There's a huge divide between wholesale and retail.
Yes. They
both think they're more important than each other. They both think they can't survive without each other, and there just seems to be this line in the middle that, I don't know, it's really weird, and the egos on both sides are quite funny. And I've been on both sides and had the egos. But it was good to be on both sides and understand it. And I think that's helped me in my role now, especially from an Australian Supercross point of view when we're trying to sell sponsorship. I understand what wholesalers go through. I understand what retail go through. I understand what manufacturers are going through. And if they say they can't do it, I understand why. And if they say they can do it, then I know we have to jump leaps and bounds to make it work for them.
Yep.
So my time there was really good. I mean, I had great experiences at Harley. I travelled, and I used to travel the world. Well, not the world, but I had to go to Singapore every year. I went to the US, once or twice a year with those guys and had some great times. I remember going to New York, Boston. Where else did I go?
So what were those
LA,
trips?
Vegas. Those trips for Harley were dealer meetings. So Harley would have an annual dealer meeting, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. They would have every Harley dealer from around the world go to the same city.
Yep.
And that's where they would launch their new model. So there'd be 5,000-6,000 people at these things, and you'd just take over the city. The first one I went to was Vegas. I remember I started at PS and Harley, and my first week was going to the US. I flew over there to LA. I went to Fox and said farewell to everyone, which was really nice. I got to do that, and then jumped in a car and drove to Vegas for my first Harley conference. And you can imagine Vegas with a bunch of Harley dealers. It was fucking wild.
Yeah.
And it was a really good time, a great introduction to the brand. And holy shit, there's no other brand out there, especially from a motorcycle point of view, like Harley. I mean, that thing is a big, massive beast. And I went to Harley not knowing anything about it. And I didn't go reluctantly, but I didn't love it. I went there because it worked for my family. That brand makes you love it so quickly. And I become so passionate about Harley really fast. And I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect to be with that brand or want to be with that brand for long. I just thought, it'd be a stepping stone. We'll see where this takes us. I might meet some people, because I've always met people along the way that can help in one way or another. And man, I was the most un-Harley guy out there, but I grew to be a Harley guy quite quickly, and I loved it. I love the motorcycles. I still do. It brought my dad and I, we're always close, but it brought my dad and I closer. He was a Harley guy. I got one through work, and we would spend, afternoons or one of the days on the weekends riding together, and it was really cool. But that brand was amazing, and still is. They're going through a bit of a tough time at the moment, but I think every bike brand is. But they will survive because they've survived so many times, and when many other brands haven't.
How did Harley go through COVID?
It was really tough. We just couldn't get stock.
Yep.
Plenty of people had cash, so finance penetration was shit house. Business managers in store really struggled because everyone seemed to have all this cash all of a sudden. They wanted to buy bikes. They wanted to spend it. They couldn't go away on holidays. They couldn't, leave anywhere. So they were buying bikes. When you spoke to Dean, it boomed for him as a sales guy.
Yeah.
It was great. And I don't think Dean had the stock issues like we did on the Harley side. Australia they probably sell 10,000 new Harleys a year, right? But it's still only 2% of the US market.
Yeah.
So we were a piss in the ocean. So they obviously
prioritized their
prioritized
stock.
US and Europe over ours. So we were just struggling. Guys were waiting months for bikes when it'd normally be weeks.
Yeah.
So it was a really difficult time. But if any brand was going to get through it, it's Harley.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they looked at buying the Alta brand.
They did
as
buy
well.
it.
Oh, they did buy
They
it.
did buy it. So Harley had the vision for their electric bike, and they brought it out. It was an amazing, probably one of the best motorcycles I've ridden. It was called the Livewire. Where they went wrong with it, though, was it didn't have any range.
Yep.
So the range on it was around 125 Ks. So you couldn't cruise on it. So you couldn't ride from my house to yours and back on it. You know what I mean? So it was a commuter.
Yes.
But it was a $50,000 commuter.
Yeah.
Where Uber Eats guys who are riding electric bikes around the city aren't spending 50K. Yeah, they're spending 2K, right? So it just didn't take off here because they were so expensive. Yeah, it was just the wrong time. They just didn't hit the nail on the head. The bike was amazing. It was just too expensive and didn't have enough legs in it. Yeah. So they got rid of it. But to kick that off, you're right, they bought Alta.
Did they look at going into the dirt side of things?
No, they just bought Alta and to steal its technology, and then they buried it.
Yep.
From what I believe, anyway.
No, that's interesting.
Have you rode a Stark yet?
No, I haven't ridden a Stark yet. I would
do you
love to
want
ride a. Oh, I would love to ride a Stark.
That's making me really excited to ride again. I know the Stark guys were down here last week, and they took all the Monza boys out to Park 4, and I didn't go, but I haven't heard anything bad about that thing, other than the 80 horsepower could get pretty ugly.
Yes.
I'd have to back her off a bit.
But that's manageable.
Yeah. So I'm excited to jump on one of them, and that's kind of pricked my ears up again. I don't know, and I don't know why. I asked myself why. Why that's got me excited again? Because I love combustion. I love the sound. I love the smell of a dirt bike still. But I don't know why I'm so interested and intrigued by this thing. And it's I feel like if I was going to get a bike, I'd want to buy one of them.
Yep.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, I sort of touched on it with Dean. I don't feel like it's going to replace the combustion engines, but I think it's going to become its own.
I think it will eventually.
Oh, eventually, yeah, down the track. I think there's just too much sentimental attachment to the combustion engine at the moment. I think it'll end up having its own events, its own racing, its own scene, basically. And I rode a custom-built e-motocross bike.
What was it?
A mate built it. So
what do you mean? What out of what?
So he had a business building e-mountain bikes. So he had contacts with all the suppliers. He bought himself a YZ250 rolling chassis. Mm. And he built it into so just through his suppliers, he got custom built batteries, custom built motors.
How long ago was this?
It was when Alta was probably in its death throes.
Okay.
So, I don't know, going back 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And I rode that, and we took it out to Crucix, and I loved every bit of it. The torque was just incredible. It was completely different to a combustion engine in its characteristics. The only thing we found was that despite the specs all being appropriate, once we actually hit the track and got in the sand, the battery life was 15 minutes.
Okay.
So, on hard pack and dirt roads.
Not a bad effort for a backyard job.
Like, it handled well, it rode well, it was clean, it looked awesome. It had all the technology, like the little gauges, it had adjustable power mapping through your phone. Mm-hmm. So everything that his mountain bikes did that he was building, all the technology was on it. It just, the only thing that it lacked was the batteries. Yeah. And the batteries on the Stark and the Altas, there's a reason those batteries are so expensive. It's because they're massive. Yeah. Like, they've got so many cells. And I think that's just where his one lacked a little bit. He tried to make it as good as possible within his budget. And he spent thousands of dollars building this thing. It just wasn't a commercial quality.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, good on him for having a crack.
Yeah, but to go back to the original point, it was fantastic and I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know if it'll ever replace, for me, riding the combustion engine, but I'd definitely be willing and open to the opportunity of it replacing it. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a crack on one for sure.
We hope you're enjoying the show. It's time to take a quick break to say a few words on behalf of our awesome sponsors. So keep your ear holes open and your finger away from that fast forward button. And most importantly, support the sponsors that support Mental for Moto. Death Grip Products. Nearly all motocross riders experience arm pump, some of us more than others. As well as exercise and a good diet, one of the things that's really helped me is wearing the right gloves. The Death Grip Reaper glove is a lightweight glove that is designed to maximize comfort and feel. And the non-slip logo on the palm and fingertips reduces the effort that it takes to stay connected to the controls. Death Grip Products is currently offering a whopping 35% off the Reaper glove for Mental for Moto listeners. To take advantage of this offer, click on the link below and use the promo code MENTAL23 and you can conquer your arm pump demons as well. Works Racing Goggles. It's been a horrible wet winter so far, but with the Works Racing roll-off system, you can ensure that you ride with clear vision every time you get on the track, regardless of how muddy it gets. A small locally owned business, Works Racing Goggles offer premium performance at a fraction of the price of some of the big name brands. To order yourself a pair of Works Racing Goggles today, simply follow the link below. Wolf Building Compliance and Fire Protection. Having a quality fire extinguisher in your trailer and workshop is one good way to make sure that your valuable dirt bikes don't accidentally go up in flames. Servicing the Greater Melbourne area, Wolf can help you out with all your fire protection needs. Visit wolfbc.net or click on the link below and use the contact form, and the guys at Wolf will be sure to look after you. SPMX engine and suspension performance. There's one thing that the bikes ridden by the fastest riders in the world have in common, and it isn't always that they have the most horsepower, fanciest engine mods, or shiniest aftermarket exhaust systems. It's good suspension. Contrary to popular belief though, having your suspension working correctly for your weight, speed, and preferred style of riding is no longer a luxury that is accessible only to the pros. As an average rider myself, I can attest what a difference getting your suspension tuned and serviced makes. So if you want to go faster, ride safer, and simply enjoy your riding more, book in with Steve at SPMX to get your suspension tuned and serviced. You'll be amazed just at what a difference it makes. Graphics by Aqua. If you want a lit kit, Graphics by Aqua have got you covered. Neon colours, metal flaking, holographics. Graphics by Aqua are taking jersey prints, graphics kits, and graphic design to the next level. Best of all, Graphics by Aqua is locally based and exclusively use premium quality local suppliers for their full range of products and services. They even do custom logo designs and work uniforms. To see some of their awesome work, check out the Graphics by Aqua Instagram page and give them a follow while you're there, or simply follow the link below to visit their website. Shred Bike Care. The concept behind Shred Bike Care is simple. A clean bike is a fast bike. And with a complete range of products, from bike wash and degreaser to chain lube and surface treatments, Shred can have your bike looking clean and shiny every time you hit the track. Australian owned and locally produced, the range of Shred products are fast acting, safe on all bike parts, biodegradable, and unlike most other generic cleaning products on the market, are entirely designed by bikers for bikers. To check out the full range on offer at Shred Bike Care, visit their website by clicking on the link below. Now let's get back to this episode. All right, before we go on to your current role at AME, the last thing I just wanted to talk to you about, in between all these different roles, you've been a floor manager at a whole variety of different events, from Crusty Demons of Dirt, Nitro Circus, to the WSX and ISX Open events.
Yeah, that come about. So the first floor managing gig I had was on a Crusty tour. I did an Australian tour 1 year, and I did a New Zealand tour 1 year, and that come all about through Trevor Brooks. I'm not sure if you know who Brooksy is, but he's the guy behind every Supercross track here in Australia.
Yep.
Every Nitro track, or they're not tracks, every Nitro show when he builds the course. X Games, he's done, you name it, he's done it.
And he's building Adelaide
Monster trucks. He's building
Newcastle
Adelaide, Newcastle. He's doing working with Dream Tracks on World Supercross as well. But he is a really good friend of mine. Crankiest bloke I know. But I absolutely love him, and he's given me a lot of opportunity. So I was at Monza during that time for Crusty, and he needed a floor manager. I had worked with him when I was working for Urive. We ran a freestyle event in Launceston. It was Hobart. And Brooksy built the course there, and that's where I met first Brooksy. So this is going right back to the start again when I was working for Urive. And I left Urive, went to Monza. I ran that floor for that freestyle event, and Brooksy needed a floor manager for Crusty. He asked if I was interested. I spoke to Scotty and John and said, look, I need to take a few weeks off. I'm going to go on Crusty tour. Then they were like, yeah, fuck, go for it.
Yeah,
they were really cool. Like, it's like what an opportunity for a kid. Did that for 1 or 2 years, and then I knocked it back the second time. Their tours were getting bigger and better, and they were going to be weeks away. I was just kind of flying in and out.
So what do you do as a floor manager for Crusty?
You run the show basically. So you've got a show caller who sits up in the corporate boxes in the stands. Right, all right, he'll be on the comm saying, all right, pyro go now, music go now, big screen. All right, Mick, send this guy out now. So I'd be on the floor sending the guys out, telling them where to go, and so it's really like a stop go guy. That's what floor managers do, but you can't fuck it up.
Yeah,
because
of course.
if you fuck it up, you fuck the whole show up, and then it's
No
all
pressure.
on you. Yeah, no, there was a lot of pressure, especially when you're at a Nitro show and there's only one guy in the world doing double backflips, and you see on the big screen before Cam would go out and do a double flip, they'd show his crash, or a crash of him doing it, and it's normally the big one he had in Madrid, which almost killed him, and then it's just him and I back there, and you can't help but watch it, and then when I get told he's got to go, and I tell him he's got to go, he has to go.
Yeah.
There's no backing out of it. And it's like, fuck, all right, see ya. And man, we just give each other the knuckles and off he would go. So, Nitro was a really good time. That's another, talking about career highlights, getting to meet Travis and getting to know Travis quite well. A funny story about that is I was at Fox at the time, very first Nitro tour. Cam, knew Travis, but I didn't. He rocked up to our first rehearsal and he was wearing jeans and a flanny. Travis was always a Thor guy, but he didn't re-sign his deal with Thor for whatever reason, and he had every intention to ride that whole tour in jeans and a flanny. So I just met him and I said, hey, do you need some gear? He goes, oh, nah, whatever. I said, no, I'll work for Fox. It's my day job. And he goes, man, if I crash in these things, I'm going to get hurt. Because the lander was a proper lander. It wasn't an airbag back then. And if you crashed on that, you got tore up. So he's like, yeah, I'll take some. So I made a phone call to I remember Scotty. I'm like, holy fuck, we can get Travis in Fox. And he's like, what do we need to do? I said, well, all we need to do is put a DC logo on it and a Red Bull logo on it, and he'll wear it for us. He goes, what's it going to cost? And he goes, nah, nothing. His gear deals would have been worth hundreds of thousands back then. And he was just stoked to get something and not have to pay for it because he didn't want to. I also think he wanted to stick it up Thor.
Yes, yeah, of course.
What was funny though is we got him in this gear. We printed it out. We had our own printing machine so we could print logos on jerseys and stuff. And within 3-4 hours, Travis had gear. So he's posting it all over his social media. It's all very first Nitro Circus tour. Nitro are going hard on social. And Fox in the US are ringing us going, Mick, what the fuck have you done? We can't afford this. Travis's agent, Steve Estevan, who's a very big deal, was calling Pete Fox, who's another big deal. And they're going, what? You can't put Travis in Fox. We haven't done a deal. You got to pay this. So Pete Fox is ringing Scotty. Scotty's ringing me going, holy shit, we've upset the apple cart here. Long story short, we got a whole tour out of it. They just were butting heads all week and we were just kind of running with it.
Yeah.
At the time. And we got away with Travis running Fox for a whole Nitro tour free of charge. And it was, no one really knows how we pulled it off, but we just kind of did. And I remember the last show, obviously Travis was a Red Bull guy and they wear Red Bull helmets and those things are like gold, unless you're a Red Bull athlete, you're not allowed to have one. They're not allowed to give them away. It's in their contracts. They're not allowed to give them away. Over that tour, we were talking about my helmet collection. I collect helmets. I've got signed helmets from a lot of people, and it was like a hobby. And at the last show, he come up with a hacksaw and handed me his helmet, said, pull the strap out. So I did. He cut the straps off and signed the helmet for me and gave me this Red Bull helmet, which I've still got.
Unreal.
Yeah, so I love when people come around and they see that Red Bull helmet, and it's just got a really cool story to it.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's very, very cool.
So, yeah, that was my floor managing days. I did Nitro, did Crusty. I also did all the AusX events when Bailey and Sando fired those up. I would fly up there for the weekend and help Adam run the AusX events from the floor. I had nothing to do with them in the build-up to them other than that week as when rehearsal started. And then that led into World Supercross last year.
Yep.
Running the floor at Marvel Stadium. I did Friday night for Australian Supercross and then the Saturday night for Australian Supercross. But
and was that the catalyst to your role at AME?
No, not really. It's interesting how that came about too. So I had enough of PS, Harley, retail. I was just kind of, but I wasn't looking to go anywhere really. I just was bored of it. I was so bored.
Yep.
Harley marketing, we didn't need to do a lot because we had the market by the balls down here anyway. PS, you can only do so much in retail world from a marketing point of view. And they were very focused on their e-com platform and their digital marketing for their website, and that wasn't really what I was into or loved. I got an opportunity to go and work for Santa Cruz Bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's not too many people that know this story. So I was really close to taking a job with PON, and they're the distributor of Santa Cruz and Cervelo and a bunch of other brands. They're based in Adelaide. I was going to go there as a marketing director, and I was talking to the guys there, and it was pretty much a done deal. Santa Cruz in the US wanted some references for me. So I called Bailey and said, hey, I need a reference. This is what I'm thinking of doing. He's like, oh, yeah, sick, cool, no worries. And I had a reference within half a day.
So where was the job based?
At home.
Yep.
Working from home. Their PON is based in Adelaide, but I might have had to go over there once a fortnight or whatever. But yeah, no, I was working from home. Super keen because that was our world, that mountain bike space. And, you know, Hudson was excited. He thought he was going to be riding Santa Cruz all of a sudden. And I asked Bailey for that reference. And then it was a few days later, he must have, I think in AME they were talking about getting someone else. They needed a hand, really small team again, really good team, but small. They needed another resource. So I got a call from Benny saying, I heard you're looking. Why don't you come work with us? And okay, I said, sure. Doing what? So I spoke to Callie, which is Bailey's wife, and I've known Bailey and Callie for many, many years. I don't know, 20, 25 years. Bailey was the MC at my wedding, and I was supposed to be the MC at their wedding, but I couldn't go in the end. They went to Bali, and Christy was pregnant, about to pop, so I didn't end up going. But that's how we go back a long way, and our friendship goes back a long way. Bailey was my brother's agent. Yep. Back when we were driving Supercross races as 18-year-olds in high aces, it was kind of the three of us doing all-nighters, driving. You know, I remember one time we drove to Brisbane and didn't stop to swap drivers. We just wanted to get up there. We had to be back home, or we're just stupid, one of the two. So that's how far we go back. But I started talking to Callie about this role, and it was with AME, and World Supercross are a client of AME's.
Yes.
And AME run, what I was going to run for them, we do quite a lot for them now, from a digital marketing side to content creation, and we manage their social media for World Supercross. And I was coming on to manage that with a team. We outsourced a really good team to work on that with. Not long after I had started there, I was working with Benny Williams, and Benny was the GM of Australian Supercross, and for a couple of reasons, he left our business on his own back. He had some things to do, and we, rather than replace him, we thought, why don't we just try and do it ourselves?
Yep.
I'm definitely not the smartest person in that room at AME. There's some really smart people in there. Again, it's only 4 of us or 5 of us in that office, but I think I bring the experience and the knowledge for our sport. Yeah, so we had it, rather than go out and replace or try and find someone to replace Benny, we thought we'd try and do it ourselves. And Australian Supercross has landed on my lap, and I'm really loving it. We're doing some really good things. It's only a small series this year. It's still in a rebuild phase. COVID really hurt Australian Supercross, but they did 4 rounds last year. This year we went back to 3, but it's going to be 3 amazing rounds, and we're going to continue to build that. We've got more rounds planned for next year, the year after. We're rolling out some really cool, good things. We've got the privateer program, which we can talk about. We're introducing the CR2285 Cup this year. We've got more entries for Supercross this year than I think what they've ever had. As of this afternoon, there's 129 entries, which is huge.
And what's the breakdown in classes for that?
26 for SX1, 23 for SX2. This could be wrong, but it's around that. Yeah, 33 for SX3, and we've got 36 or 38 for 85 class. Which is fucking huge. Oh,
it's massive. Well, you've got a gate at 20 for Newcastle and Melbourne.
And 10 in Adelaide.
Yeah, 10 for Adelaide.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. We've got a lot of momentum, and I've really found my love and passion for Supercross again because of it.
Yep.
I love waking up. I wake up and never know what the day is going to bring, but it's super exciting. And there have been hard days and difficult days and days where I thought, what the fuck am I doing? Or why am I doing this? Or what have I done? And then I remind myself, God, I was so bored where I was. This is exactly what I wanted and where I wanted to be.
Yeah, when every day is a bit different and brings a new challenge.
Here I am. And right now with the momentum we've got for Australian Supercross, we're 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks out from round 1. Huge rider lineup. Privateer programs that we've rolled out that have, just 2 weeks ago that have been received really well. Reintroducing the 85 class and naming it in Chad's honour. It's just really cool.
Well, we'll start with the CR22 Cup.
Yeah.
The 85 class. Who was the brainchild of that, and how did that all come about?
Well, Chad is an ambassador for Australian Supercross, and he and his family came out from Newcastle last year, and the plan was to use Chad again for Newcastle this year. And we thought, well, last year was all about the return of the Reeds. What are we going to do? We can't do that again. You can't do the same thing 2 years in a row. So what are we going to do this year? So I had the idea to name a class after him and honour him that way. And my suggestion was SX3. And he loved the idea of getting his name behind something, but he does not like SX3.
Oh, really?
He doesn't like under 19s. He doesn't like SX3. He thinks if you're 16, you're racing pro.
Yep.
I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. I like the stepping stone. I think it gives kids other opportunity. But I also do understand his side, only because that's what we had to do.
Yep.
So he didn't want to do that. And he goes, why don't we do an 85 class? I said, well, we don't have 85s. We've got 65s because that's just what they did last year. So we left it at that, spoke to the team, and the team loved it, and that's where the CR2285 Cup was born.
Yep.
We've dropped the 65 class. We've got the 85 class, and it's really important because there is, and like you said, when we're having a chat earlier, there's just nowhere for these guys. Like, you hit seniors or you hit 14, 15, and then you're into Supercross SX3. There's no build up to it.
Yeah, well, you've got a pinnacle series in the Aussie Supercross, but I think for the success and longevity of Supercross, especially in Australia, like over the last decade or so, I feel there's really been a massive black hole when it comes to Supercross at the amateur level. Working at a track and talking to riders, I already know there's few places to practice or learn Supercross.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of there hasn't been a lot of financial incentives in the past for non-supported riders to commit to doing Supercross in Australia, especially when it's like a 3-round series. They've got to train, they've got to invest in their bikes. There's no feeder series from arena cross to Supercross for riders to learn how to compete in a discipline that's significantly different from motocross. And, we want to get full gates, and I think having full gates now and into the future relies on a different approach and a few different initiatives, and it looks like you guys are sort of taking that.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I don't know what the numbers are, but the last year the gates were a little light on for Australian Supercross. And for the exact reasons why you said, I think it's so important that we get kids racing Supercross earlier, like what it was back in our heyday. I was racing Supercross. I did a couple on an 80. I was never any good. I was actually shocking at it, but I still had the opportunity. And that's where everyone, in Australia had the opportunity. And that's something that Chad said, that he's always had the upper hand over. This is how competitive those guys are. But Ricky and James never got the opportunity to race Supercross on an 80 where Chad did. And that was something really interesting that he told me, and just something he felt like he always had over those guys.
But in the US, it's something that they do now is maybe not even race, but, a lot of the younger riders coming up through the programs have opportunities to train at different facilities.
Train for sure, but not so much race. So, but that'll come now. I mean, if we build this out, we come up with this in May, and what are we now? We're in September. Look how far we've come already. We could take 36 kids in the 85 class. We've got 39 at the moment, so we've got 3 on the wait list. That wait list did blow out to, I think we had 8 or 9 on the wait list. I mean, we've had a few kids drop out, unfortunately, getting ready, and that's kind of to be expected, which is a massive bummer. But that 85 class sold out. We had 36 within, 2 hours.
That's unreal. That's such a good sign. And I mean, the Pro MX 85 class was pretty well contested as well. Like there's a lot of hot talent coming up through the ranks.
So 3 rounds this year, and this is another really, good thing that we're carrying some momentum. We announced the 3 rounds only in March this year, and we're in a position to announce next year's dates in between Adelaide and Newcastle.
Yep.
It won't be 10 rounds, but it's going to be more than 3.
Yes.
And then the year after, we're already working on different venues and some government funding and bits and pieces to go other places.
Yep.
So we've got a lot of momentum, and it's looking really good, and I'm really loving it.
Well, I'm a massive Supercross fan, so that's music to my ears.
Yeah.
Going back to the 85s, I know it's not your area, but how are you going to sort of cater for the 85 level riders and that level of experience when you're building the tracks for the premieres?
The tracks are going to be exactly the same.
Yep.
There were talks about dumbing the tracks, not dumbing the tracks down, but
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Dumbing the tracks down a little
Simplifying.
bit. Yep. Not even for the 85s, but that was for SX1 and SX2. For that reason, that they don't have a lot of races. They aren't a lot of tracks to practice on. And I got shot down with that. They didn't want it. They wanted full-blown Supercross tracks. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
But how are we going to cater for those guys? So there's obviously a guy who we're naming it after. And Adelaide on the Friday before, we're doing a mentor session. So there'll be no one else out there on that track except for Chad and those 36 kids. He's going to walk the track with them all and their parents, and we're going to, talk them through every section. And ideally, we wanted to have a riding session with no one in the grandstands and give them an opportunity to ride the track first, but it just didn't work out. But Chad's going to be there. He's going to be there for practice. He's going to be there during qualifying. He's going to be on the start line with these kids. And it'll be different in Newcastle when Tate's there. Tate won't be riding round one.
Yes.
So his son. But for Adelaide, when Tate's not there, he's going to be really focusing on all the kids and going to make an effort to make sure that these kids are comfortable being their first race and do whatever we can together, or as when I say together, as in AME, to make the kids and their parents feel comfortable and let them go out there and tear havoc. I mean, it's kind of Adelaide's going to be a small track, so it can't be too gnarly anyway.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good thing that we're starting there for these kids, but we've got a program in place where Chad will be there to give them a hand and mentor them through the whole weekend, which is pretty amazing. Like, tell me anywhere else in the world that's happening.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how that pans out. I've been an advocate for simplifying the tracks as well in the past, but simply because of the lack of development that riders have coming into the series, and seeing riders like good riders last year crash out and be injured. I don't think that's good. It's definitely not good for the riders, and it's not good for the scene in general.
But I asked that question, and the feedback we got was no, they don't want it.
Yep.
So I was on your page.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to get that feedback, and so was Kevin Williams. When we, because Kevin's a huge part of AME, he contracts to us. He's our what's his title? It's GM of Motorsport or something like that. And I talk to Kev every day. I mean, I say it often, there isn't much that guy hasn't done in this industry. And Kevin and I, when I was younger and had an ego going to the races, I used to be the biggest pain in his ass. But we are great friends now, and I learn a lot from that guy every day. And everything he says makes a lot of sense. And he was even on the same page as you and I with this, about dumbing the tracks down a little bit. And the general feedback was don't do it.
So who was providing that feedback?
Riders, teams.
Yep.
Like privateers, factory guys, team owners,
even privateers and
100%.
Oh wow.
Yep. I could give you the names of them. Like there was Elijah.
He's good at Supercross though.
Is he?
Yeah.
No, he goes good. No, but there was just from everyone. Everyone we spoke to was don't do it, and there was quite a lot of feedback that come back from, because we just didn't go to one group, because we know what, if you ask the factory guys, we know what they're going to say.
Of course.
So we asked every group. Burnsy, that guy, he was a pain in my ass at the start, but there's the whole privateer support programs came from a conversation that he and I had, which we'll touch on that in a minute. But he was another guy who said, don't dumb the tracks down.
Yeah.
They're already small and arena cross-ish. Don't do it. I'm like, wow, that's not what I was expecting to come from your mouth.
Yeah, I see like the other side of the coin too. It creates a division between, the really elite guys and everyone else too. So there's pros and cons of doing that. Like I said, for me, it was simply...
If you don't have a full-size track and we get these kids involved now, what's the point of getting them involved now? If we want to have an advantage and we're going to groom these, that's a really bad word to use. If we're going to...
I'll edit that one out. Develop
these kids into Supercross riders, from 12 years old, then that's what we might as well make them full-blown tracks, because if we're not doing them any favours by making it easy.
Totally. You've actually filled that gap with the programs that you've got. It's already addressing sort of the shortfalls that I sort of listed before.
Yeah.
So the 85 Cup, it's probably going to be a big step in the first year for a lot of these kids, but coming into next year, they're going to have that experience and that development under their belts, and by the time they reach MX3 and MX2, they've got that history.
What it'll do too is that, because we're doing this and we've made a commitment to it for many years, is that kids who are 10 now will probably start building Supercross tracks, because they know in 2 years' time they're going to be able to race it, and so they'll start getting ready for it now. So I think that's what they'll do. I mean, there is obviously a lack of Supercross tracks around the place, but there's been no real reason to build them. But now there is, and even for SX1, SX2, SX3, we can there's going to be more rounds added each year, and they've got something to look forward to, so they can invest in the track between a bunch of them and leave it sitting there, and they can practice on it all year, or just groom it again. Fucking hell, they can get the track ready when they need to, but they can have it sitting there.
Yeah,
and they don't need to invest in a new track all year. And like I said, these younger kids will start building tracks earlier, getting ready for it, because they know next year I can do it, or in 2 years' time I can do it.
Yeah, it's kind of it was a bit of a chicken and egg situation that the Australian Supercross scene was in. But like you sort of touched on, that other incentive, the privateer support program, it gives the non-supported riders the opportunity to actually compete and make money. They've got the incentive to invest that back into their program.
It's a little bit more than just making money with this privateer support program too. There's more to it than that.
Yep.
We're giving them opportunity to get their sponsors involved. We're giving them opportunity to save money by not having to spend money to buy content, because we're going to provide that for them. I mean, so if you wanted to break that down, and I'll start by saying, like, I am so proud of this privateer support program. Again, I'd been out of the game for a little while, and I came to AME. And when I started at AME, my role was really focused on World Supercross, so I wasn't really paying too much attention to Australian Supercross. I was helping them out with some marketing, some ticket sale bits and pieces, but I wasn't across everything day to day. It wasn't until Benny left, and it was kind of like, holy shit, it landed in my lap as well as the others. So Alice and Ash, who are absolute superstars, as well as Cal, who's based up on the Gold Coast. But it wasn't until I was in it day to day, and I knew this was going to be, our baby, that I started paying attention to a lot of the noise on social media. And when I did, I was like, holy fuck, there's like a lot of people out here that aren't stoked with Australian Supercross.
Yeah.
Why? And it was all coming from one group, and that was from the privateer guys.
Yep.
And it used to piss me off. Like, you just see people teeing off, mainly Burnsy, and straight up, like, Burnsy and I are fine. We text each other, and he's happy with what I've done, and I'll straight up say, this privateer support program wouldn't have happened unless he and I caught up for a coffee. He lives around the corner from me, and I'd never see the guy or whatever, but we caught up at a local cafe, and I'm like, fuck, man, why are you so angry? Why do you hate AME so much? Why do you hate Australian Supercross so much?
Is that Chandler Burns' dad?
Yeah, 100%. I've known him for a long time. I used to sponsor Chandler when I was at Monza, and we've crossed paths and been around each other, in different forms along the way. And yeah, I messaged him and said, let's catch up. It didn't happen. He was still carrying on. No matter what was said on social media, he'd have something negative to say, and it pissed me off. So I said, let's catch up. And we did. And it was a really good conversation.
Yep.
And I'm so glad I did it. And it helped me understand why they were frustrated. He wasn't angry. He was frustrated.
Yes, yeah.
They just felt that it's not that we didn't care about him. I mean, that's some of that was the words he used, but of course we did. But probably the team just didn't really understand what it took to get a privateer on the gate. Anyway, so I said, throw everything at me, and I wrote it down. Some of the things I didn't agree with, I thought he was wrong, and I had answers for. Whether I was right or wrong, who knows? Can
you touch on some of those?
Yeah, well, everything on that privateer program. I mean, where I say I thought he was wrong, it was some of the comments he was making about AME not caring about privateers and only giving a shit about CDO, Yamaha, and Honda, and all we cared about was making money and getting bums on seats. I mean, we're a business, we're not a charity, so that's our business. We make money and pay staff and put these events on by getting bums on seats, right? But that's all he thought we cared about.
Yep.
And that's okay. He's entitled to his opinion. But he went through the list of things he had, and some I didn't agree with. Some I explained why that happened. But there were lots of things that he said that I did agree with and gone, okay, I get it.
Yep.
So I went back from that conversation. I had a notebook full of notes and shared it with our team. And we were just we didn't really know what to do with it. We thought we could make a couple of things better. And then I was at footy training with Hudson one night, and Cal rang me, and we just have these conversations. And I said, why don't we put a privateer support program together, and we can do this, 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 this. And from that conversation, it probably took 3 months to roll it out properly, because we wanted to roll it out properly. we wanted to make sure that if we said we were going to do something, that we actually did it and didn't promise something and then not come through with it.
Yeah.
So it was so important that everything in this privateer support program we said we're going to do, we have to be able to do. And we have. So it's stemmed for, if you look at our website, it's all listed on there quite clearly. The first thing we did was prize money last year was paid down a tenth.
Yep.
So I wanted to try and get everyone who made the final get paid at least their entry fee back. Didn't quite get there, but everyone in SX1 and SX2, it's gone from paying down to 10th down to 20th now, which is great. And that was some feedback from Burnsy. The prize money was rubbish, so we had to increase the overall prize pool to pay down to 20th in both classes. What else was there? Exposure through the pit. So Newcastle Supercross last year, the privateer boys were put down the back and they had no exposure through to the pit party. And the pit party is quite big. Like, it was a big part of the event. So we took that on board. With the pit party, we can't have high ace fans and things amongst it because it doesn't look great. But we're going to put tables and tents out so privateers have a space to be a part of it and to be exposed to the fans. They can
talk to fans.
They can pull up a seat. They can get their own posters printed now, and people will come up to them and they can meet fans and people. So we're giving them that exposure that way. Another complaint or an issue we had was content's not cheap, right? And to buy a photo from a photographer that was working for AME, it might cost $100 a photo or whatever they'd charge. I don't know. So we've put a thing in place now that we've employed an extra 1 or 2 photographers. We've got an extra 2 in Adelaide, and they're going to shoot photos of everyone. And after the round, the next day, we'll send a Dropbox link out, and everyone's going to have access to their own photos free of charge to use on their own social media. There was that. We're also doing something called the partner incentive, which is we're going to give each rider, because we want them to promote the events for us.
Yep.
And we need to, because if they promote it out to their audiences, some of them have big audiences. Like, again, look at Elijah. He's got 30,000 something followers on Instagram. And, Joel Evans does too. Like, these guys have got big followings. And we ask them to promote the event. And some of the feedback was, well, why would we? What do we get from it? We've got to pay our entry fees, and we're promoting the events which you get the ticket sales from. So if I get around to it, I will. So I said put an incentive in place that we'll give them the content to post. If they post all and promote all 3 rounds in their own social media, we'll give them 5 tickets for the last round for them to give to sponsors.
Yep.
Everyone's asking for tickets and wristbands and pit passes, and they want this. So we're making them work for it, but
it's a contract.
It's a contra deal. So that was received really well. What else was on there? Of course, the big one. So the MX. So MX Store got wind of this, and they're a huge partner of ours at AME and Australian Supercross. And Briggs called us up one day and said, we've got $10,000 to give to privateers throughout the series. How do we do it? So we called it the privateer payout, where the top placing privateer in SX1, SX2, and SX3 get $1,000. And the fastest qualifying or the highest qualifying privateer gets $100 in those 3 classes. So it was $9,900. So we had $100 up our sleeve. So it gives these guys an incentive to go out and have a bit of a crack, because they might, they could win up to $3,000 for the series for 3 rounds. And everyone seemed really stoked. I'm really proud of it, and it's been received really well. And just the feedback has been great, and it's good to be able to have a vision, and we've really turned a negative around into a real positive, and people seem to be really excited for Adelaide, not just because of it, but it's helped.
Yes.
And I feel like the mindset of some people towards Australian Supercross has changed because of it.
Look, personally, I think that the initiatives that you guys are implementing this year are probably the best thing that's happened for Australian Supercross in general in a lot of years. It's got the riders excited. It's got the fans excited. You can't do one big thing and expect a massive change, but all these little changes that you've made from listening to people and implementing, the suggestions that you're coming across that work and are sound.
We're all ears.
It's amazing.
I mean, we're not going to be able to implement everything, but we'll listen to everything and do what we can, within reason, and it has to be viable. Australian Supercross is still a business, but we want to make it work for everyone. Like I said, we're in this reset phase, but I feel like we're going 100 mile an hour out of it, and we're in a really good spot, and it's just going to continue to grow. And our team, like I said, is small but mighty, but we're super passionate. And like I told you before, I fell out of love with Supercross and motocross for a little bit, but man, I'm right back into it now, and I'm so stoked to be working on it and doing these kind of things.
It sounds like you love a challenge.
Yeah, well, I guess not really. I would like it to be easy, but again, I had it easy when I was at the retail gig and was super bored. So here we are.
So you've sort of touched on it already about the growth over the next few years with the Australian Supercross Series. Is that going to change how the support program looks?
No, that's why it took a long time to roll out, because we had to make sure that this couldn't just come in for 1 year and then go again. And then if we go to 4 rounds next year or 5 rounds or 6 rounds, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if we go to 10 rounds, we still want to be able to do this.
Of course.
So we had to make it viable. MX Store commitment to Australian Supercross is for the next 3 years. So we said, hey, if you guys are doing this, we need you to do it for the next 3 years, or can you? And they said they're in. So
does the dollar amount go up for more rounds?
No, they've committed more rounds. The dollar amount stays the same, so it'll dilute per round. It might go up, but at this stage...
If you get another promotional partner or...
Well, no, it just depends on MX Store, but what they do now is amazing.
Of course, yeah.
We wouldn't ask them for any more. They might, who knows, but we wouldn't expect them to.
Yep.
But the plan is that per round amount would dilute if we increase the rounds, which we definitely will. But knowing MX Store, who knows what those guys will come up with.
Yeah, I mean... They support a lot of events, a lot of ride parks. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They do it right.
Yeah.
Even when I was at PS, I hated those guys.
Yeah.
Because they did it so right. And it wasn't that we couldn't, but man, they just had budgets and we had a different direction. We could have done what MX Store did, but MX Store didn't sell motorbikes. They didn't sell jet skis. They didn't sell adventure touring bikes. They didn't sell postie bikes. They didn't sell learner approved Harleys. They didn't sell that. So it's pretty hard for a business like that to do what they're doing when all they sell is apparel and parts.
Yeah, smaller scale stuff.
It's not smaller. It's a massive, massive business, but they just had the one category discipline where it was really hard to do that when, as a marketer in PS, and I know we're fucking moving off topic here, but
it's all interesting.
It was I had to market Harleys 1 minute, and then a Yamaha dirt bike, and then a jet ski, and then a postie bike, and then a Fox V3, and then a kid's set of gloves, and it was just like all over the place. Like their strategy was so much broader.
Yes.
And had the same amount of time, the same amount of money, and the same amount of effort. So you had diluted across everything, which didn't give you the impact as what in motocross or supercross like what they have.
Yep.
And that's why they do such a good job, because that's all they focus on. And they do a brilliant job, and they're a huge supporter of us and of the sport in general. No. Even for them, with that privateer program, they're sending a guy out to every round to shoot a video purely on privateers, which is great.
Yep.
And that's on the program, but it hasn't really been spoken about too much. But they got their media credit in today. They had to do it the right way, and it's pretty cool that they're sending a guy out to shoot it. And their edits would normally be about the guy who wins or whatever, and this year it's about the privateers.
Well, I think there's a lot of interest in the privateers and the privateer story, because it's different to what we've come to expect from the factory guys. I know my podcasts they're focused mostly around the privateers. And the privateer ones get a lot more downloads than the factory ones.
Yeah, I've said that before. That's interesting.
So
I wonder why. I mean, is it them and their families and maybe their peers listening to it, or wonder what it is?
There's an element of that. I think that they self-promote the episodes where
true.
The higher level guys don't always. Some of them do.
Yeah.
Some of them don't. But I think, in my experience anyway, speaking to the factory guys, a lot of them have very, very similar stories. They started riding dirt bikes at 3 years old.
They're always quick.
They were recognised at a young age. They had support all the way through, blah, 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 blah. Whereas the privateers, there's such a diversity of stories. A lot of them were underdogs. A lot of them didn't have the financial support when they were younger, and they did it off the back of their results. Mm-hmm. Some of them have amazing personalities off the bike, and that's what's allowed them to garner support for their programs.
Yep.
There's all different stories, and they're all different, and I think that's why people are drawn to them.
Yeah,
everyone loves the underdog.
Yeah, for sure. No, it makes sense.
So, 100%. And in our sport, a lot of people just didn't know who those underdogs were.
Yep.
That's one of the whole things that got me into podcasting. I'm a glutton for information. if we're watching a movie, I'll be looking up the cast and who's in there and start reading about their backgrounds. It's just the way my brain works.
Yeah.
And with motocross and supercross, I was exactly the same. I'd see someone on TV or hear a name, and I'd be like, what's their story? What's their background? And most of the time, I was really frustrated because I couldn't find anything. Like, you can find anything about anything on the web, and I couldn't find any information about some of these riders.
So what's your plan for the show? And I mean, I'm turning the tables back on you, and I'm interviewing you now. But what's your plan for it? I mean, I know you told me you went up to Coolum and QMP, and you mentioned you're gonna try and get to all 3 Supercrosses, which is great because we'd love to have you. But why do you do it?
I love the stories. I love the sport, first and foremost. It's something I've always been super passionate about, probably bordering on obsessive. I just love so many things about it.
Do you still race now too?
Yeah. I got back into racing. I had 25 years off the bikes.
Fair stint.
Yeah. And, I'm probably not as good now as I was when I was 12 years old, and I wasn't great then. But, yeah, I'm just super passionate about it. I love the mental aspects of the sport and even just what it does in terms of...
So is that where your name comes from?
Yeah.
Or for the show?
Yeah. We're digressing a lot here. But when I was 40, I went through a few different things. I was facing a few challenges all at once. And I struggled a bit mentally. And, I lost my dad the year before, and I had stuff going on at work and stuff going on in my personal life. And in the background, I'd always had this dream of wanting to race again. And I'd been putting it off for everything, for work, for family, for time with the kids. And I just had this sort of epiphany that I'm not getting any younger. You've only got one life.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it now and stop putting it off.
It's not going to get any easier.
No, and as soon as I made that decision, like a lot of these stresses that I had just melted away. It was like, I don't know, for other people, it's going to be other things. Like, it's not motocross for everyone.
Yep.
But I think everyone, especially guys, we need that outlet.
Yeah, for sure.
It's physical, it's mental. When you're on the bike riding, you're not thinking about those bills you've got to pay. You're not thinking about that shitty client you've got to deal with when you get back to work on Monday morning. And I think, at the end of a ride, I get off the bike and it doesn't matter how stressful my week's been. I feel like I can take on the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's
good
so,
on you.
Yeah, that's what moto does for me. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it. Yeah, like I said, I'm a glutton for information, and my goal, I guess, is to provide coverage so that information is more accessible to more people. And I've got massive, massive respect for these young riders, the risks they take, the investments they make, and everything that they put in, the blood, sweat and tears. I find it frustrating when I see guys that are in, the top 20, say in the Pro MX or around, floating around 20 or 30th. Yep. They're amazing riders. They go to local races and you would think that they're world champions when you see them on a regional scene, and then they get there and they're 30th place in the national, but they're perceived as not being very good. And that for me frustrates me. So I thought by providing them more coverage and a voice.
That's good. It's definitely needed. I mean, like I said, I've been out of it for a while, and if you would ask me who was 20th to 30th, I could not tell you. Would not have a clue.
Yeah. So, and look, I think if you look at the US for comparison, they've got guys that are in those positions, barely making mains or not making mains at the Supercross.
Yeah.
And they've created profiles that are now eclipsing what even some of our factory Australian riders have just through good media coverage.
Yeah, they're working for it.
Yeah, and I don't see any reason why we can't make our Australian riders, especially the elite ones, those superstars of the sport. Like, why do they have to go to the US to reach superstar status or Europe? So I think with the right media coverage and the right events, we can create that here. Like, Australia's got a massive motocross following and supercross following.
Yep.
We're an outdoor adventure sport country. We have great weather. We've got the demographic for it. So
it's a good time too to do it with Jet and Hunter. They've done such a good job promoting themselves and the brand they've built for themselves. Lucas has done a great job with them in the way he's managed them, and they're well liked globally.
Yep.
from an AME point of view, we don't do a lot, but we run their merch program. So you'll see the Jet and Hunter merch getting around, and we run that globally for them. So it's I don't have a lot to do with it. I might do a little bit of marketing, but Alice,
Is that like the Jets and Donuts and?
no, not Jets and Donuts. That's his own. That's another business that he's got. So it's another 3 Aussie guys own Jets and Donuts, and Jet and his I think his agent Lucas is involved in that too.
Yep.
No, so we just own their merchandise range with obviously Jet and Hunter are own it as well. But we're partners with it on it, and we just run it from start to finish for them.
Yep.
For all the way from designs, production, we run their website, the Jetson.co Hunter, Jetson.co and Hunter.co social channels. So it's a really good and fun way to stay connected to them. But I mean, as a day-to-day thing, we're not in touch with them or anything. Alice, who's an absolute superstar in our office, she deals with Lucas, their agent, on it, and that's about it. But it's another fun little project. It's not like we're doing merchandise for some dude playing table tennis or whatever. It's Jet and Hunter Lawrence, and it's still fun to be involved with.
How are the sales doing?
Really well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it does really well.
So WSX, I know you've got a little bit to do with that. You mentioned it earlier that SX Global, who look after WSX, is a client of AME.
Yep.
So how do you fit in there, and what's your role with?
So like I said earlier, I got brought when I started at AME. My role was going to purely focus on World Supercross, and they are a client of ours at AME. We create all their content and run their social media platforms. So every social media platform they have, every bit of content you see go up on it, that's including, I'm not sure if you saw it, but something I'm really proud of. We did a series called Top of the Chain.
Yes.
And I did that from start to finish with a film crew from the Gold Coast, but I wrote those briefs, I wrote the scripts, I helped produce them, and that's something I'm really proud of. I've obviously know Daka and Yuri really well. Daka's also, which I haven't touched on, but is a huge mentor to me. He's probably got 10 years on me, but we're great friends, and massive influence over my life and career.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed working on that piece with him. Also doing Yuri's piece was great. I've known Yuri since his dad was taking him to Westgate in the back of a taxi with his bike hanging out the back of a boot. And we've been family friends ever since. And I still, to this day, I'm in my position and have had my career in moto because of that guy.
Yep.
I mean, we've had an interesting relationship. He'll always be a friend. He'll always be someone I love, but fuck, he's pissed me off at times too. And there's been stints of years where we haven't talked.
Yep.
We didn't talk a lot when I was at PS Retail or Harley. We just didn't have a reason to. But now I'm back in this space. We talk often, and it's like we never didn't speak. So it was great to work on that piece with him. And we did a piece on every team owner and getting to know their stories. We wanted to do different type of content, and obviously Drive to Survive's out there.
Yes.
And it's a lot about the rivalries between the team owners and the team managers. So we didn't want to really create that kind of rivalry, but these guys have got such interesting stories to tell. So we did that, and that was a part of our role. So we did all that we went out and did a rider profile and a video on every single rider. We did the top of the chain stuff. We go to the events. Went to Birmingham and covered that for social media. And it wasn't just me; it's a team of people that run their social media program. So that's what we do for World Supercross. Other than that, I'm not too involved day to day. Bailey is one of my longest friends, and it's great to be doing this stuff with him and for him. He's a super smart dude. We all know, it's been no secret that World Supercross had some dramas, but the SS Global and the new ownership with Adam and the 2 other guys, they're in really good hands. The business is in a great position. It was a massive bummer that we had to, they had to drop a few rounds this year, being Canada, Singapore, and Germany, but that's not going to hold them up. It's just a bit of a reset moment. We'll get through Abu Dhabi and Melbourne. Both events are shaping up to be absolutely huge. Melbourne's going to be fantastic. Ticket sales looking great. Great rider lineup. There could be a couple of surprises in terms of riders. I mean, I actually don't know who they are.
Yep.
I've heard whispers of a few, but they'll Kenny's going to be there, but he won't be the only one. And Abu Dhabi, what a place to run a Supercross race. I mean, I'm spewing. I actually can't go to it because it clashes with the BMX Nationals in Shepparton of all places. I know, but it's a big one for us. So I'll be at home watching that one, and I'll actually be working from a cabin in Shepparton, no doubt, watching that one and snipping live TV segments for social. But Melbourne's going to be great too. And then I know that next year's going to be a cracker for them. They're in really good hands, and I feel like they have to go out and prove everyone right again because it has been a bit of a rough start, but I'm a firm believer in it. I'm super confident. I know what Bailey's capable of, and I'm really proud of him and the team that he's put together, and World Supercross is not going anywhere, and it's going to be it's going to be huge in years to come.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast with Bailey it was a few days ago, and I love the fact he's so accountable. He takes responsibility for it. I love his approach. When I first started this podcasting journey, I actually got COVID right when I wanted to, I had my first guests lined up to come in. So I recorded a solo podcast called WSX Domination, and it was just about...
I remember that.
Oh, glad someone, someone does. But I think conceptually, over the years, I've been a massive fan of Formula One and MotoGP, and I love watching the AMA Supercross and AMA Motocross. But I think the concept of WSX, it could be such a big thing, bringing that to the world. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I love dirt bikes. I don't know if it'll ever be as big as MotoGP and Formula One, but I think it can be. It can eclipse anything in the dirt biking world that we've seen so far, potentially.
Yeah, definitely has the potential. It's got the right people behind it now. I think the key is probably baby steps. No, not baby steps, but just take our time with it.
Achievable steps.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. And they know that, they recognize that, and that's the way they're going to go. And it's in really good hands.
No, I'm excited to see
and
where it goes.
I'm pumped to be a part of it. I'm actually really proud to be a part of it.
I can imagine you should be.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, I think it's going to be
in the small way that I am. It's only social. I wouldn't say it's only social because it's a big beast.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm stoked to be a part of it, and I'll push it as hard as I can.
No, awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see how the rest of this year plays out. I think what they've got planned for those two events is as to making them really, really good quality events as opposed to having the quantity. It's a good approach, and for me, it doesn't take away from the series. It would have been awesome to have 6 or 8 rounds, but 3 good quality rounds and potentially more next year. I think, it's on a good trajectory anyway. And I hope to see it reach the success and the heights that, the plan, it was always planned to.
I think it will. Actually, I know it will.
I wish you could say more. No, but I know and understand the position that you're in. So I'll move on to the last topic I wanted to really talk to you about today. And it's interesting in its own right, which is Shred Bike Care.
Yeah, that's my little baby. Shred is a bike care brand, and it was a COVID child.
Yep.
Things quietened down at retail. Everyone backed off a couple of days. I think I went back to 3 days when that kicked in, and that was pretty tough.
Yep.
And my son was riding on a BMX team, and there was another dad who is a chemical guy, he's a chemical salesman. He was selling cleaning products for the hospitality industry, so breweries, bars, restaurants, and during COVID, when that lockdowns kicked in, they went really quiet.
Yeah.
Like proper quiet. So in their lab or whatever they had, he was just playing around with some product and come up with a degreaser and a bike wash, and he come around to my house one day and said, "Oh, give this a go, and do you want to try and have a crack at this brand?" And I'm like, man, it's just bike wash. It's just a degreaser. They're all kind of the same. I'll use it and whatever. I just sort of grab it and use it to wash some bikes and be done with it. I started using this stuff and I was like, holy shit, it's actually really good. Long story short, from there, we developed a brand, and I don't know. I really enjoy building brands, and it was great to build one of my own. Yeah, we developed a brand that kids really wanted to use. So, I mean, it was interesting. There was lots of cleaning brands out there, but everyone targeted adults and sponsored professional riders. No one was targeting kids with that stuff. And during COVID, mountain biking grew like 60% because kids couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't ride. They weren't racing. So they were building jumps in
backyard,
or, man, now Botanic Ridge was just covered in dirt bike, pushy jumps. like everywhere, including, and it was so cool. You'd see my son and he'd be knock at the door and there'd be 3 kids at the front when they're pushies with shovels over their shoulders. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, go for it. Dig a jump wherever you want. Like, pick the neighbor's nature strip. I don't give a shit. It was really cool because that wasn't happening anymore. They were on PlayStations and stuff, and that's how they were talking to each other. So it was really good to see. So we created this brand. We made it look really good, and targeted kids. We went and found the kids that would jump the biggest and ride the fastest, and we loaded them up. And what I found now with social media is kids, my son's age, like he's almost 13, he's following his peers more than what he's following his heroes.
Yes.
So he wants to know what his peers are up to and what they're jumping at the local jumps more so than what his hero's jumping or what his hero's coming in a downhill race.
Yep.
So it was important for us to go after the kids jumping the biggest things and riding the fastest and putting it on social media because every kid wanted to be like their peers. And what their peers were using, every kid wanted to use what their peers were using. So our marketing strategy, I almost called it a fluke, but it worked. And our little brand that we thought we would be selling at the back of our cars at BMX races turned into something a lot bigger than what we ever imagined really quickly. I was fortunate, again, through my time at Fox, had a lot of connections in shops.
Yes.
And distributors. And we got into a lot of shops quite quickly because of my relationships that I had through my time at Fox. And even we had a distributor in Japan take it on because they were the Fox distributor and I knew him. We had the New Zealand distributor take it on board. We had the Fox distributor in Chile take it on board. So next minute I'm sending all this shit all around the world, like pallets of it. I'm like, holy fuck, this is like legit. So look, it's long story short.
Was it a challenge to keep up with the production?
Nah.
With that sort of growth? No?
Nah, not at all. Like it was quite easy.
Yeah. But where do you, if you can answer, where do you make it?
Yeah, no, we got a lab in Bayswater, makes a lot of it.
So that's all local.
Yeah, there's one in Cranbourne too. Everything gets made in like 1,000-litre IBCs, whether it's, our wash, our degreaser, or our eco clean. We started it with a bike wash and a degreaser, and now we were rolling out a new product every month, and I think we got 15, 16 products now. But everything gets bottled in Cranbourne at a bottling factory, and we send it. It gets made. We send it there. They fill it, label it, pack it, box it, store it for us.
15 BMX kids sitting there bottling.
They're all in there. Yeah, no, they're not. They're actually students studying to be doctors.
Oh wow!
Yeah, which is really cool. So we know they're all calculated. Everything's measured to the millimeter, and nothing goes missing or anything. Nothing's shipped incorrectly, and it's quite good. So we've got a distributor here now. It's still at 95% a bicycle brand, and that's fine.
Yes.
We're going to start pushing harder into the moto space. That's a bit of a strategy. Shred really took a back seat for this first half of the year for me. I had a lot of time. I shouldn't say this, but I did have time to focus on it when I was at PS and Harley because we're kind of doing the same stuff, and I was bored there, and I had the time to do it. Where when I started at AME, I had no time. I had to hit the ground running with this place, and then Australian Supercross happened, so Shred really took a back seat.
Yep.
And the dust has kind of settled for me now a little bit, and I've found some space, and I've got a partner in it too. Still.
Is that still the chemist?
No, there was actually 3 of us in it. So Victor had some health issues and bits and pieces and decided to get out. So it's just another guy, Tim, and I. So our kids race BMX and ride mountain bikes together. So yeah, but he's also a busy guy too. So it just it didn't matter if it just sat there because we don't owe any money. It was still selling. The distributor had plenty of stock because retail's pretty tough out there for bicycles at the moment. So I think if it was our sole source of income, we might have been in a bit of strife, but we were pretty lucky that we're in a position that it's still a side gig. But it's, again, something super passionate about, something of my own.
Your own baby.
Yeah, and I was able to build it up the way I wanted to. And I really loved seeing people want to use it and want to buy it. And it's pretty cool walking down the street nowhere near your house and they got a Shred t-shirt, or you're driving home from the office in the city and there's a car goes past with a Shred sticker on the back. Like, that's an amazing feeling. And, getting tagged on social media from all these, young throffers, wanting to use our brand, and it's just a nice feeling. And it's something that I'm maybe Huds might want to take it over one day, or we might gear it up to sell. I don't know. We've got no plans for it. We're just chipping away at it, and it's a lot of fun, and building that content and working with, again, super fast and talented athletes on mountain bikes and BMX is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it's definitely well presented, and that's a testament, obviously, to your marketing background.
Thanks.
I look forward to seeing where you take it and what
I'll
happens
have
with the
to
brand in the
get
future.
you some.
100%.
I should have brought you some down tonight. I didn't even think to throw some in the car.
Well,
Next time.
I'm definitely very particular about cleaning my bike and stuff, so I'd love to try
That
it out.
sounds like a challenge.
Yeah. All good. Well, I really appreciate you coming down and taking the time to sit in the studio with me and chat.
No, it's good. It's good to be here. I know we tried to tee it up when I first started at AME, and I just kind of wasn't the right time. I didn't really know where I was, who I was, there in that building and whatever. And it was really early days, but like I said, the dust has settled, and yeah, we're charging along there, and it's good to be able to come and do these things, and I'm stoked to come here and do this with you, mate.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's good to see you after 30-something years.
Yeah, how good.
All right. Well, hopefully I can get you back on again sometime in the future.
Sounds good.
I'll come up with some good talking points.
We'll see you in Adelaide.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, thanks, mate.
Cheers. A huge thanks to Mick for coming in studio, and especially for speaking so candidly about his time in the industry. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Once again, I'd like to thank our partners here at Mental for Moto, SPMX Suspension and Engine Performance, Graphics by Aqua, Works Racing, Wolf Building Compliance, Desk Grip Products, and Shred Bike Care. This has been episode number 16 of the Mental for Moto podcast with our industry guest, Mick Sinclair. Thanks for listening. Until next time, see ya.